Welcome back to the Foundation in C# course. We are currently in Module 8, and this lesson we're going to be looking at NoSQL concepts. The idea of what is NoSQL, what does it mean, why do we use it, and so on. Let's start with the overview. The idea behind NoSQL, which is sometimes called not only SQL, is that a normalized database structure is not the only way to store data. So we've seen normalized data structures now with SQL and SQLite and MySQL, which are very popular database options. But there has been this movement towards a NoSQL option, which is not saying NoSQL. Like I said, look up here, it says not only SQL, because you can call some NoSQL databases using select from, insert into, and delete and all the rest. So they do have some SQL syntax, but the idea is it's not a normalized data structure. That's not the only way of going. Now you've heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it again a couple times in this video. There's not one right way of doing things, not in development. We want options, and we have options. And so if we get locked in on this is the only database for everything, that's the wrong take. You do need to have some decisions that go into why you choose one over the other. And it may be that two different people choose two different databases for a similar operation because of their familiarity with it, with their team's familiarity, with their existing infrastructure, with the cost structure, and so on. There's a number of decisions. It's not just a clear-cut, this is what will work and this won't. Okay? So NoSQL comes in as another option. Now let's look at the goal of NoSQL. And the goal is to fit the database structure to the situation, rather than forcing the situation to fit into an existing database structure. And by existing, I mean an ideal. So we looked at normalization and the idea that we only store data once. And that NoSQL database. There won't be the let's break it apart into multiple tables and link it in. Nope, it's going to be one document that stores all of our information. Now think of that document as a JSON object. If you've seen a JSON object, that's what a document is. Now for the purists in the room who are thinking that's not really accurate, technically, when we talk about the database options we're going to choose, they'll store in what's called BSON, which is binary, instead of JSON, which is text. So, but when it comes to how we see it, it's going to look like a JSON object. So just think of it as a JSON object. Yes, technically under the covers, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's beneath the level of what we need to understand in order to use a NoSQL database. Now, we're going to use a document structure database, but there are other options for structures, including a key value store. So think of it in C# as a dictionary, okay? That can be a database. So Redis is a key value store. You may have heard of Redis. Now, there's also wide column stores like Cassandra and graph databases like Neo4j. So these are sometimes very specific styles of database for a very specific purpose. Okay, so Redis is great for caching. It's really, really powerful for that. So each structure kind of fits the need. Now you see, remember I said before that the database structure is going to fit the situation rather than the situation fitting the database structure? That's what these different styles of NoSQL database are all about. They're about fitting the situation. And so when you're looking at just saying, I want a NoSQL database, that's not really specific enough, because there are different styles for different situations. You have to choose a style that's going to work best for your situation. In ours, we're going to use a very standard style, and so we're going to use the MongoDB and also Cosmos DB, which are both document structures. And actually, in Cosmos, we can store different types, but we're going to choose the document style. Okay? So that's our focus for these next couple of videos, is NoSQL, but a standard document structure for our NoSQL database. All right, so a tip. There's no one right database style. Whether it's relational, NoSQL, or others, it all depends on your scenario. So don't let someone say, this is the only style. There may be best practices, and there are. There may be default choices, and there can be, but don't let anybody tell you there's only one right answer for every situation. It all depends on your scenario. You have to think this through. And you've heard me say this before, and I'll probably say it again, but I'm really trying to pound home the idea that don't get hung up on this is the way to go and nowhere else. It's not. There are choices out there, and you need to understand what those choices are so you can make an informed decision about what's best for your scenario. Okay? Homework. Do a bit of research into the various NoSQL database types. Well, you just type NoSQL, or maybe you've heard about a couple, read up about them. See what type. Are they document databases? Are they key value pair? Are they something else? Familiarize yourself with the options and their types. Okay? So just know what's out there. You don't have to understand how they work, how to use them. Just know, okay, here's the big players. Okay? Here's what CouchDB does versus PouchDB versus, and go on through a list. Maybe Firebase or all the rest. Okay? So just check them out and kind of get familiar. We're going to deal with two in this series, the MongoDB and then Cosmos DB. Okay? So that's what's coming next once you do that little bit of research. And please do the research.